Okay, so I am trying to get in the habit of feeling comfortable doing these videos. As I mentioned before, I consider myself more or less an introvert. I wouldn't say that I'm shy, but I would say I don't necessarily feel comfortable in large groups or in social settings and things like that. It's not really my thing. I don't get out much, but I did get out recently, earlier. So I thought that this would be a good time to talk about why I'm doing the State of the Union event and and why I think it's important for people to be there. For those of you who don't know, the State of the Union address is basically telling you what's going on in the country, in the government, at a federal level. It tells you about what has been done and what hasn't been done, what kind of programs have been enacted, what their plans are going forward, and it kind of gives perspective on different areas. It'll talk about, foreign affairs, for example. It'll talk about, major policies like, jobs, taxes, trade deals, reforms, different kinds of things like that. And it's just telling you what's happening, what's going on, and what's planned. That's as simple as that. If anybody ever tells you, don't listen to someone, they're a bad person, don't listen to anything they have to say, literally nothing they have to say, that person is not your friend. Because number one, they're telling you what to think. They're not telling you, look, listen, judge for yourself, you'll see. That's what a person who really cares about you will do when you're just talking about listening. I'm not telling you to go and drink any kind of Kool-Aid or anything like that. I'm just saying it's important to listen. Once you know what is and isn't being done, and I know people will probably tell you, oh, well, it's nothing but a bunch of lies. Well, why is it that people who never cared about politicians lying before, now all of a sudden think that that is a reason to literally shut down their voice completely? That's hypocritical. Like, examine yourself. Think about what it is that you're doing, standing for, saying. Okay, so you're going to listen to what is going on, and oftentimes you'll be able to tell whether it's true or not just by what's going on in your own life, whether or not anyone's disputing it's always important, because sometimes we'll say that's nothing but a bunch of lies, but they won't tell you what the actual truth is. Well, how do you know which one's lying? They're politicians. How do you know which one is lying? So you have to first keep in mind that there's nothing new about a politician saying something that may or may not be true. The second thing that you need to understand is a person's opinion, if they really believe that, that's not a lie. They could be wrong, they could be misinformed, they could be misguided, but it's not a lie. So if someone's telling you something that they believe to be true, that's not a lie. One of the biggest tricks that media plays, and I call it media trick, but anybody can do it, is to redefine words and redefine terms and then tell you what it's supposed to mean, so they kind of are controlling what you think without really saying so. So let's say that someone says, you know what, I think the economy is as great as it's ever been. And they really believe that. They could be wrong, but it's not a lie. You have to be aware and be conscious of that. And it's hard to do that. Granted, it's hard to do that because that requires you to sort of micro listen to things. But I would suggest that once someone becomes discredited, then that's when you stop listening to them, not just based on someone else telling you that they don't have credibility. Because what that means is that someone can manipulate you. And as I always said, be careful of people who have an agenda to manipulate you. Especially in politics, it's like if you're a Republican and you support the president, then naturally, if you're a Democrat and you don't, you have an agenda, you have a vested interest in saying he's lying and discrediting him. I'm not saying it's right or wrong one way or the other, but that's the reality of the situation. So you always have to think about what someone has at stake and what they're telling you and what they're trying to convince you of. And a lot of it is easy to prove. I say all the time, I'm like, black unemployment is at an all-time low. Well, no one's disputing that. It's not like there's a Democrat out there saying, well, this is not true, and here's the real numbers. There's no one disputing that. Another something that I posted was that, that deregulation was causing black business startups to be at a higher level than it's been in a long time. Well, that's easy enough to check. No one's saying it's not true. A person may say they don't like it, or they think it's bad policy, or they may tell you their opinion on whether or not it's racist, but it's always important for you to make that decision for yourself. Don't let someone else tell you, because a person could be doing two good things that you're doing, and 10 things that that you think are bad. Well, you ought to know which is which. You ought to know what 2 things they're doing right and which 10 things they're doing bad. Those are things that are important to know, because in order to get what you want, the first thing you have to do is you have to know what you want. You can't just say, I want this result, and you don't know how to get there, but you think that someone else knows how to get you what you want better than you do. That's not going to work. That doesn't work. If you say, I want more equality, and somebody else already thinks things are equal, well, you could think that they're wrong about it, but how are they going to help you if they think everything is fine? It's an unreasonable thing. So what I'm trying to encourage people to do is, number one, know what's going on in your government. Know what they're doing, know what they're not doing, know what they want to do and what they're trying to do. And then you take the next step from there. Is it what you want, or is it not what you want? Why or why not? Does it make your life easier? Does it make your life harder? Why? Why not? Those are things that you need to examine. And you need to examine those for yourself. Don't take the word of somebody who has an agenda, because you always have to assume. I listen to both sides of every argument as best that I can. Sometimes it gets hard to listen to certain people, because if they're saying something that I happen to already know is not true, that's hard to listen to. But I want to know what they're telling other people. So I always listen. People say, oh, you listen to too much Fox News. To me, corporate media is corporate media. They're going to say certain things. They're not going to say other things. I get my information mostly from its source. There are some things it's hard to do that, and I don't recommend that everybody do that. It depends on how much you care. But when I started looking into the rumors about the government doing drug dealing, for example, well, they admitted that. There's documents, government documents out there that admit that they did that. So it's not like it's a rumor. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, they put out unemployment figures. If someone thinks that's wrong, they can dispute that. And then, you can go dig further and try to see if you can find additional information. All of that information is available to you. If it's not already published on different government websites, you can request it. They're required to give it to you in most cases. So I look for the source, and I try to flesh out that information for myself. And that's how I decide who's lying or who's not. I already know that media can be trusted. This is the same media that told us, oh, there's nothing to that. This is not true. There's no spying going on. And now there's government documents that show that actually there was spying going on. And I tell people all the time, for everything that's happening with Trump, first and foremost, you're assuming that it's true because you want to believe it. That's a bad precedent to set for yourself. Don't believe something is true. Think about whether or not there's any evidence to support it, or is it just people saying the same thing over and over? Because that's called brainwashing. When someone tells you the same thing over and over and over, and it lacks evidence or it's not true, that's brainwashing. And nobody wants to be brainwashed. Nobody gets brainwashed on purpose. So a lot of what I do is just debunking the myths. I will answer any question. I followed politics for a long time. I'd say I studied politics for about maybe almost 10 years, but I actually followed it since way back to Ross Perot. If you're old enough, you remember him. If you're not, you probably don't. But the minute I turned 18, and I turned 18 in an election year, so it was 1986, and I went to an actual caucus. That's where, instead of a primary, you actually have to go in person and cast your vote. It takes all day long. It's a very intense process. Those who are interested, look it up or contact me personally. I'll let you know. But I've always been kind of interested. And I went from kind of being interested to really following it and listening to the actual policies that they were presenting, and then I tried to make a decision based on that. Now, a lot of them are lying, or they changed their mind, or they changed their position. So again, I say people who are all of a sudden so concerned about a politician lying, don't be hypocritical. Like, examine yourself, understand what you're doing and what you're saying. For everybody who's out there, it's like, if you're looking for a reason to dismiss the lies of some people and looking for a reason to magnify the lies of another person, and they're all in politics, self-examine. That's all I'm saying. And a lot of what I want to do at the State of the Union event is to have people ask themselves a question about, set the personality aside. What is it that you want to happen? Because if you cannot do that, then you will make room for yourself to be played. If a person knows that they can talk to you a certain way and they can promise you certain things and you're going to support them and be all in, well, why would they not do that? That's what politicians have been doing that for decades, as far as I can tell. So you can be manipulated. There are still people who don't really realized that they couldn't keep their plan if they liked their plan. They couldn't keep their doctor if they liked their plan, and that premiums didn't go down. None of that happened. All of that was promised. There are people who believe that the Obama administration, for example, was scandal free. The public record tells you that's not true. All you have to do is go and listen to congressional hearings. Just because no one ever got arrested doesn't mean that nothing wrong happened. It doesn't mean that any laws were broken. People have to, and in all fairness, I understand that it's not possible to know and study everything in detail the way that I have, but pick the things that are important to you and know what's real and what's not. There's such a thing called a statute. It's a legal statute, and it tells you what is against the law and what's not against the law. Collusion is not a crime. It's not a crime. There's no such thing. Russian collusion is literally fake news. So when you hear that term fake news, some suggestion that there's such a thing as Russian collusion that's a crime, it's not a crime. It's not. And if you look at the law, there's a criminal code for federal law, and it tells you what is and isn't a crime. On the other hand, you have the private email server. That's specifically a crime. It's a violation of 18 USC 1924, which tells you what you can and cannot do with classified information. Now, they've written laws so that most people can't understand them. Certainly, most people are never going to read them. But the reality is, if you've got news that's coming on day after day telling you that someone could be arrested, the pressure is on, this, that, or the other, blah, 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 and they literally have not committed a crime, how can you trust that organization? So those are the kinds of things, like I said, everybody doesn't care about everything, but I can answer those questions for you. If someone's violated a statute, I know. I've done a lot of legal work. That was where I had my first encounter with true full-on corruption, and I had to study to make sure that what I actually encountered was corruption. That required me to study the law. So I learned that people can say whatever they want to say. That's kind of what happened to me. Someone said, this is the law, and so therefore this is the way I'm ruling, and that actually wasn't the law at all. They just simply misstated the facts. And if you don't know when that's happening, then you're again being brainwashed. You're being manipulated. I can't tell you everything that's said in media or by a politician that's a lie, but I can teach you how to find the truth. I can teach you how to critically examine what's being said, and you have to establish the credibility of the source. And then decide whether when something important comes along, you're going to take their word for it, or whether you're going to go and examine and investigate it for yourself. Anybody who's not happy with their government, a lot of times when I say that to people, they don't want to change so bad that they'll just say, I'm happy. Okay, if you're happy, then this event's not for you. If you're not satisfied that your government hasn't done something about police brutality, for example, if that's a problem for you, if you feel like they haven't had dedicated enough resources to job programs. Someone told me that once. I'm like, well, what do you need? What do you want? They're like, well, we need more job programs. And I'm like, well, do you know how much money is allocated already for job programs? Do you know how much comes from your federal government? Do you know how much comes from your state government? Do you know how much comes from your local government? Do you actually know what's being done already? Do you know what's happening to that money? The answer to that question was no, 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 no. Well, then how do you know you need more job programs? How do you know you need more money for jobs? How do you know that will work? How do you know? And that's what we have to stop doing. And I like to sort of break through this fog that people are in terms of politics that causes them to just do things on an automatic basis. That they have no idea whether it's actually good for them or not, whether more or less will work, whether it's no idea. And these are the things that have to happen if we want to actually make things better. Like I said, I can't give everybody all of the steps, but I know how to fix these things. Most of the people in government are corrupt. They're not all bad, but they are all corrupt because they're all either going along. When I look at the video of Mike Rupert confronting the CIA director and a congresswoman that was there, Julian Dixon, I think it was a city council. I can't remember what his role was in Los Angeles politics. Recognizing that they knew that this was happening and they were sitting there kind of dumbfounded, just like bold-faced lying, pretending like this was all news to them. And if someone would give them some evidence of it, that they would do something about it, that infuriates me. And that's what happened to me in my own personal case. I was giving evidence and proof of corruption and they were like, well, give us your information and we'll see what. It's ridiculous. This is how people get away with what they're doing. And then you've got a lot of people that just kind of sit by and feel defeated. You're going to have to pick one. I am willing to fight this fight until I determine that either no one cares or not enough people care. And I don't think that's the case. If that was the case, we wouldn't have Trump. People basically said, what do I have to lose? I'm going to give it a try. That's what happened. Anybody who hasn't watched videos of any of his rallies and seen what he promised, you may not necessarily understand that, but that's basically what happened. People said, what do I have to lose? I am not happy with the way my government is, so I'm going to try something so radical and so new because I just feel like I have nothing to lose. If these people in politics are so smart, because they've got you convinced that they're smarter than you. Let's be honest. They're like, we're smarter than you. You just need to sit down and be quiet. You just need to understand that these problems are too complicated for us to fix. Try that if you have a kid that's out of control in your home. Tell them, well, don't take my kid from me. I'm doing the best that I can, but this problem is too complicated to fix. CPS will be down your throat. They'll be all up in your business, all up in your house. Your kids missing school, they're truant. They don't get to just keep their job and tell us that it's too difficult. They're actually not smarter than you. So anybody who's ever thought about why aren't things getting fixed and they're frustrated, don't rule out running for office yourself. It's always been hard because it's always been a money issue, but I think that that's going to change because people do have a hunger and a thirst for solutions, for results, and they're not getting that. And if someone comes forward with some of those and they're strong enough to withstand the attack that comes, there is an attack that comes with it, then you might be surprised that you just pick up sort of followers in the way that Bernie Sanders did and no one really saw it coming. I don't agree with what his message was, but a lot of people did agree with his message. And he sort of came out of nowhere and gave a real run for the money to Hillary Clinton, who everybody presumed would just walk into that nomination. So if you are unhappy with your government, all I'm saying is come to the State of the Union event, ask me questions, challenge my knowledge, because I've studied really hard and I had to force myself to sort of come out of my privacy and anonymity to share the message that I've learned. Challenge me, ask your questions. I can answer them. I believe I can answer every single one of them. I can prove to you sort of by connecting the dots, just like with the police officers that you don't trust and the people who are empowering them that you do trust, that I can prove to you that taking an interest and taking chances and not assuming that they're so smart and so efficient and so good at their job that they get to keep it when nothing is getting better, that I can convince you that there is a better way and that they are not the entitled group of people that they seem to believe that they are at this point. I'm going to try to do a couple of more videos on this topic of what I'm going to be doing and covering in a little bit more detail at the State of the Union address. But I think it's important for people to hear what's going on, because until you know what is actually going on and know why it's going on, you can't reasonably, intelligently ask for something different. All you can do is sit by and complain. If that's all you want to do, this event's probably not for you. But if you actually want to know what's going on and what's happening, then this is something that you need to attend. If someone's lying to you, if there are lies in the State of the Union address, I'm not saying there will or there won't be. I can teach you how to figure out which is and which isn't, because at the end of the day, a lot of it's really, really easy to check out. So for those of you who think it's should not even be considered, that you should not give this person the time of day, this is your government. It's yours. You may have been brainwashed to believe that it's not yours over a period of time, like just sit down, shut up, we know what we're doing, so just leave us alone. But it is yours. And it's just as much yours as it is the next person. And the federal government is only one layer of government. It's just one layer, and they have the least impact on your day-to-day life, especially in Southern California. Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, Eric Garcetti, if you live in Los Angeles, those are the people that you need to be concerned with. Your city council, your mayor, those people have a whole lot more to do with what your life is like on a day-to-day basis than Donald Trump. And if you're so focused on him, they're laughing because they know you're not focused on them and the fact that they're either doing nothing or doing things that are bad for you. So I really encourage people to reconsider. You can leave, walk out of there and dismiss it. If you think it'll be better if I add a drinking game for every time Donald Trump shows his palms, we can do that. We can make it fun. I don't want anybody drinking and driving, but if there's something that you think will make it a little bit more palatable, let me know. I'll try to make it happen. I don't have a venue yet, but I'm hoping that I'll have one within the next day or two, so that people who really want to see some changes in their government will be empowered to do that. So thanks for listening. Again, it's a little bit longer than I intended to go, but I really do want to get the message out. So thank you.